have so much respect for people who step into the unknown, strike out, and then step up again the next day and strike out. And then a year's gone by and they've seen some incremental or huge gain, and they can look back on that journey because who they became in that journey of striking out, who they become in the process of stepping up every day, to me is way more important than what measure of success they do or do not have.
Hello and welcome to the Business of Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tarryn MacCarthy, and today we have with us the one and only Karan Nijhawan. I'm so excited to have you here, Karan.
Oh, look at your energy. You know, when you get asked to be on a podcast, you're like, yeah, it's just a podcast, but you have such a good presence, such good energy. Your social circle is incredible, and just your attitude and your mission are so powerful that it's an absolute honor for me to be even asked to be on this podcast. So thank you for having me.
Well, the honor is all mine, Karan, and I'm so grateful that you're joining me here today. And I'm so excited to be kicking off 2023 with your message because as we were chatting before the podcast started recording, I feel like we have a very similar outlook on the world and specifically on dentistry in this incredible profession. But let me tell my audience a little bit about you first. So Karan is the founder of the Expansion Project, which is a movement that focuses on helping dentists design their dream life. Hello, we're on the same mission here, Karan. He also helps them deal with self-doubt, imposter syndrome, feeling of not being good enough. Believe it or not, if you're listening and you're recognizing some of this in you, you are not alone. There's so many of us in this profession who are struggling with these things. That's why Karan is on this mission. So he created this Expansion Project. He also has an incredible podcast I'd love for you to check out called the Fulfilled Dentist Podcast. He is a coach, podcast host, actor, and creator of incredible events, life-changing, transformational events that he's going to tell us all about. So tell us a little bit about your personal experience with fulfillment and happiness before we get started. Kind of what's been your journey over your lifetime?
Yeah, and I'll be as concise as I possibly can. And please,
Yeah, fill us in on your whole life in just a few seconds.
No,
there, please.
yeah. So I came to Canada when I was 7 from India, and immediately the message I was always taught was you have to try to fit in at all costs. And being somebody who wasn't Caucasian in a place that was not that diverse back in 1997, my only goal that my parents gave me was fit in at all costs. So I would eat like everyone else, I would dress like everyone else, I would play sports like everyone else. And in that world of me trying to fit in, as a young kid who just discovered, sugary syrups and waffles and cinnamon toast crunch for the first time, I just didn't know any better. So I put on all of this weight as a young kid in grade 6, and I was ridiculed at a swimming field trip that I was dreading. Got called all of these names about what my body looked like, and for the next 20 years of my life, because of that moment, I didn't learn how to swim because I was just petrified of being in a bathing suit. For 20 years, I would say no to vacations that included the sun or hot tub or going. Like, you never saw me at a pool. I never went to all-inclusive vacations, all because I was trying to fit in, and I was like, but look where that got me. All this trying to fit in made me feel like I didn't matter. Made me feel like my body was not the right body, and I just started challenging this questioning. I started challenging this belief of like, what does fitting in actually get you? And then I tried to fit in university. I did business school, and I got a normal job with a normal paycheck, with a normal 3 weeks vacation. And again, I was like, damn, like fitting in, like why am I trying so hard to fit in when every time I succeed in this fitting in, I feel like I'm no better off than really anyone else. So I just started to go on this self-discovery, the self journey of, well, let me just start challenging everything that is the norm. So instead of going to networking events, I started hosting my own unnetworking events where the only rule was you're not allowed to bring your business card. And that led me into doing retreats, and that led me into doing corporate workshops. And that led me into this world of dentistry where nobody knew me a year ago. And I just started questioning everything about life and time and money and about belief and possibility. And I loved how you introduced me as like a coach, an actor, and this and this and this, because I believe every one of us is capable of being multiple things. But again, in life, we're often boxed into like, okay, what is your one thing? Like what's the one thing? I'm like, well, I don't want to be defined as a coach, I don't want to be defined as a husband. I don't want to be defined as just one thing. That feels so limiting to me. So the expansion project was really a birth of me thinking, well, I think that I want to expand forever. I don't think I ever want to not expand, because the opposite of expansion is contraction. And I don't think human beings are meant to play small. I don't think we're meant to just pick one thing and be happy for 80 years or pretend to be happy for 80 years when there's other parts of us that are dying to come out. And it's those other parts and people that I really love expressing out of themselves.
Oh, that was beautiful. I love that. I love that. I get so excited when you talk about this idea of expansion because it is so true. And there's so much self permission that is involved in expansion, allowing yourself to grow and change and evolve. And I think especially within the dental profession, which is a really good point. So, as you mentioned, you're 1 year new into this profession, but already welcomed with open arms, and your fresh perspective has made such a big difference. What do you think it is, now that you've kind of witnessed this dental world, what do you think it is that holds us back from being different, stepping outside of that mold, trying to express ourselves individually?
Well, at its core, I'll say belief, but let me expand on that in so many ways. So I've noticed that dentists admittedly box themselves into thinking that they just have one skill and one skill only, which is clinical dentistry.
Hmm.
That's how their identity is shaped. That's how their identity is formed. That's how their schooling was taught. Hey, you are this and you are this only. That's how your team knows you. That's how your patients know you. That's how your friends and family know you. They know you as a dentist. They assume you just make good money. They assume you work whenever you want. They assume you have no problems because now you're a business owner and you're just making it rain. And what are you complaining about? It's just like this false belief. Again, we put certain professions on a pedestal, not knowing that, hey, it's still human. Like, how many incredible athletes and actors do we hear who we think, wow, this person has it all, and then we realize they commit suicide, and you're like, how could a person like that be going through so much? It's We don't know what a person is really going through. So number one, dentists feel incredibly guilty in feeling that they should be grateful because they have it all by society's metrics, but inside just feel as if, again, they're just human. So I think the first thing is just this belief. The second thing is that other people have boxed in their worldview. It's like other people have told you what your world is, and then you feel guilty challenging your own set of beliefs. I also have discovered that dentists feel like they have nothing else to give to the world outside of dentistry, right? I have dentist clients who have now become spiritual coaches. They're selling spiritual services. I've got a client right now who's about to launch a retreat for laughter yoga, like the things that are inside of them that they've wanted to express for so long, but out of fear, out of shame, out of guilt, out of the idea of being ridiculed. I mean, being a business owner, being an entrepreneur, by default means that you stand for something. You stand for something greater. You're gonna This thing inside of you is just dying to come out, and you can't sleep at night unless you find a way to express your art in some capacity. So all of us want to expand in some sort of way. I just have noticed that dentists feel extremely limited, and it's not just by self doubt. It's oftentimes the environment that they're in that just celebrates being normal.
Yeah, yeah. That's really interesting because I think you nailed it on the head there, where that label is your limitation, creates a limitation. And when we give ourselves those labels, we tend to box ourselves in. What is, I know you mentioned that you don't like to box yourself into one label, but what is one that you're enjoying exploring that you haven't up until now? Something that's allowing you to expand. Is there some part of you that's a new curiosity for you?
Yeah, creative writing.
Ah,
Every morning I've been following this book called The Artist's Way, and the author's name is Julia Cameron, and she has two very profound self-discovery, self-inquiry exercises that she believes. I mean, well, these exercises have been the birth of some incredible movies, have helped so many creatives get unblocked. And the first exercise is called morning pages. The only rule is that there's no wrong way to do it. You just have to wake up in the morning, get out your journal, and write 3 pages of whatever comes to mind. Just pages of brain dumping, 3 pages of you just starting your day fresh, just as if today is a blank slate. So every morning for the last 49 days, because I document every day, for the last 49 days, I've been journaling, just creative, free flowing, 3 pages of whatever comes to mind. Sometimes there's golden nuggets that come out of it. I did one this morning that I'm confident. Actually, I told my wife, I'm like, this is a 7-figure idea. Confident.
Oh, I
So
love it.
some days you'll get these creative ideas. Other days, my first ever time writing this journal entry, it started with my back hurts
Oh,
because it was true. I did a workout. So morning pages is something I've been extremely fascinated by. Now, what's interesting about morning pages is that the process is more important than the final product. And I find that in business, in life, people are always looking for shortcuts. They want the magic pill, they want the magic formula. Morning pages, just like flossing or brushing your teeth, is a daily habit that the moment you stop doing it, the moment it stops becoming effective. So I have also recommended this exercise to friends and clients, many of whom have given up after the first couple of weeks. And I asked my clients why they stopped writing their morning pages. And I believe it's because they were attached to some final product. They were hoping that the exercise would bring them to some final destination. And life, in my opinion, just doesn't have no final destination. It's this constant quest. So morning pages is one thing. The second thing that I'm trying to get better at is this idea called the artist date. This is where you take yourself out on a 30 to 60-minute date, just you, no partner, no friends, leave your phone at home, and you just go for a walk, or you go for a 30-minute walk, or you go to a thrift store, or you go to a bookstore, and you just give yourself 30 minutes to just question
mm.
life, question everything, just say yes to possibility, be open. So I have an artist date later today at 4:30 where I'm going to go to this incredible used bookstore down the road called BNB, and I'm just going to walk around for 30 minutes and see what comes up.
I love both of those practices. There's something so powerful, going back to the first one you were talking about putting ourselves in a space of being a novice, of
Mm,
trying something new for the first time, and I think that that's a very supportive practice, especially for people in the dental profession, because we get so good at something. It's almost like our success limits us because we're
mm.
so used to being an expert at something that it's really scary to start out as a novice at something. So we don't. So we stay stuck in, you were mentioning, we think we can only do one thing. It's very safe to do this one thing that you're so good at, but it takes a lot of courage to try something completely new.
Yeah, but what blows my mind about that is like, how long did you go to dentistry school, right? Like, how long did it take you to actually get good at the thing that you're amazing at now? It wasn't a month, it wasn't even a year, it was multiple years. It was hours of practice, hours of studying books and lectures and CE. Like, it took you a long time to get amazing at something now that you could do probably with your eyes closed. So how could you expect,
Right.
you testing this creative side of you? It would be ludicrous of an idea for you to think you're going to be just as good as something you're trying for the first time as something you've been doing for a decade.
Yeah.
But something that I talk a lot about is, a lot of people are trying to swing for the home runs when it comes to ideas. They're trying to knock it out of the park on their first try. I'm more important. I'm just here for the singles, the doubles, the triples. I'll strike out, and hey, once in a blue moon, you'll get a home run. You'll be like, wow. But the key
Mm.
is that you don't stop swinging, right? You keep showing up every single day. You got the bat. You're swinging. It doesn't matter if you strike out, hit a single, double. If a home run happens, it happens. If you strike out, you strike out. But have so much respect for yourself that you're showing up every single day, working on something, you believe in something, you're battling again this creative urge of something inside of you dying to come out. I have so much respect for people who step into the unknown, strike out, and then step up again the next day and strike out. And then a year's gone by and they've seen some incremental or huge gain. And they can look back on that journey because who they became in that journey of striking out, who they become in the process of stepping up every day, to me is way more important
Yeah.
than what measure of success they do or do not have.
That's definitely where the magic lies in who you become in the process as opposed to what the ultimate outcome is.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's interesting
I, you
because
know,
oh, go ahead, Karan.
just
Yeah.
to say, earlier I mentioned this idea of these unnetworking dinners.
Yeah.
And that idea started because back in 2016, when I had a 9 to 5 job, I was at a networking event and somebody asked the question, "What do you do?" And we exchanged business cards. And when he saw my business card and he saw the title on my business card, the way his facial recognition, like just it was like he was wondering like who else is in the room. It's like my title had zero worth. When someone like reads your business card, but secretly they're already scanning the room, they're like, oh well, I wonder if there's someone more interesting to talk to. And I'd never felt so um, like minimized in my life than that moment. So I read this book about how to bring people together over dinners, and I started just handpicking people in the city who I wanted to get to know better, and said, "Hey, I'm having this dinner for people who don't like traditional networking. I'd love for you to come." And these 3-hour dinners turned into what felt like group therapy. It gave people the space to just expressively be themselves. There was no business cards. We barely talked about work. We talked about life, relationships, business, suicidal thoughts, not feeling good enough, issues with money, issues with like your upbringing. And these dinners just started to form a life of their own, which led me, if I didn't do my first dinner in November 2016, I would have never had the confidence to do my 200th dinner. I would have never had the confidence to approach companies to do dinners for company culture or company dinners for lead generation. And then those dinners turned into multi-day workshops here in Toronto. Then the workshops turned into these retreats in Mexico. Now the Mexico is turning into 8-day trips in Peru and Morocco. So oftentimes I look at the process of me just showing up every single day, swinging, regardless. I'm not even expecting a home run. I'm just here to swing every single day. And I believe that I'm only where I am today because of that first moment in 2016.
Wow. That's really cool. There's a component of curiosity that you're keeping alive in not committing to that outcome. That's what's coming across as you're talking about it. Like, I don't know where this is going to go. Let's find out. I don't know what I'm going to
Well,
become. Let's
there's
find out.
100%, and I will never know. Like in the scale of the things I know for sure in life, and the things what I don't know, like that will always be far superior. I will always not know enough things than the things that I know. I just know that there's just so much to discover about the world and yourself. I know 0.00000000001% of what I even think I know about the world. So if I'm more curious by that 99.9999999%, which is the unknown. I'm way more fascinated in that, saying, hey, let me just dip my feet in. Let me see what happens if I niche into dentistry. Oh, let me see what happens if I start coaching dentists. Oh, I've never done a team retreat for dentists before. Let me just make an offer to one of my clients. Oh, they said yes. Okay, well, let me go figure out how to do a team retreat. Oh, well, so it's just this constant curiosity, like you mentioned. I'm just so appreciative of this relationship I have with the word failure. So appreciative, because even being an actor, a good actor, as they say, and I even hate that word, but industry standard for an actor is for every 10 auditions you give, you land one project, right? It's like a 1 in 10. I've been rejected so many times. When I first became an actor, I didn't have a resume, didn't have a reel, had no acting experience, and I sent cold emails to 18 agencies here in Toronto saying, hey, I'm new, you don't know me, but I have a really good work ethic. You want to give me a shot? And of the 18, 2 got back to me. One said, call us when you've done something,
Mm,
which was another rejection.
mhm,
And one said, sure, let's grab coffee. And he was the guy I signed with. And I was with him for 2.5 years before he quit.
mm.
And I'm with a different agency. So I think acting has also helped me change my relationship with the word failure, because
Mm.
every actor will tell you that just being called for the audition is the win.
Hey guys, I'm interrupting your podcast episode to let you know about an incredible new program that I'm launching in January of 2023. It is specifically for practitioners in medicine and dentistry to help you rediscover happiness and inner fulfillment within your profession and your life. I remember what it was like for me when years ago I was so depressed and anxious and feeling like I had created and built a treadmill I just couldn't get off of, pushing through every day and wishing my life away. This program is the how of how to find happiness in your practice and in your life. Because we know that when we feel good, that's when we can do good. Check out thebizofhappiness.com/radical happiness or click the link in the show notes. I cannot wait to see you there. That's great. That's a great perspective. And I think going back to the dental industry, I think that's one of the biggest fears is the fear of failure, because it seems like when you're in the position, so there's such big things at stake. your somebody else's health or their mouth, their teeth. It feels a huge responsibility. You don't want to make mistakes or fail in someone's mouth. You usually have a team if you're a solo practitioner or a business owner that you feel responsible for. So failure there feels terrifying. And then I think another aspect of it is the huge student loan debt or even the financial debt that many dentists take out just to start their businesses. So failure already comes with a huge amount of fear right at the gate. And so it's really awesome for you to be talking about looking at failure from a different lens and having a new perspective. Because even in everything I just mentioned, there's a ton of safety as well.
Mm. I love that. There's a term that just came to mind as you were speaking and sharing that beautiful example, and the term is from poker, and it's called pot committed. Pot committed is when you've been betting, you're playing a hand, you don't have a good hand, but you have so many chips in the game already that you can't flop, you can't back out. So
Mm.
then you put in more money and you get to the next round and then you realize, oh my God, my cards have gotten worse. But you have so much at stake already in the pot. And the other person probably has a better hand than you, but you've already put in so much money on this hand that you got to see it through. And then you get more pot committed. So you invest more money. And it's just this, and then you tend to lose when you're pot committed and going into it, you have a bad hand. So I think a lot of people in this situation, they're so committed to the time that they put into dentistry, the
Yeah.
money that is tied into dentistry, the team, and now they own their business. Now their family's relying on them, and now they have a staff and they're relying on them. And it's just they're so pot committed that again, it's like how do you find a way to creatively express yourself, or how do you even have the courage to voice that, hey, maybe there's something outside of dentistry for me, when all of your identity is tapped into this idea of being a dentist.
I think that's so spot on, Curran, and I'm gonna throw a little bit more into the pot because I think another component is how many years this is what I hear from a lot of my clients is how many years and life moments, opportunities you've sacrificed for this pot. You've not only sacrificed
Mhm.
financially and emotionally and intellectually, but said no to happiness for so many years. And there feels like an investment there too that just has to pay off. And so you dive in deeper. And I think that's a really interesting junction of how to then find the courage when you're in that place, how to then find the courage to try something new, even if it doesn't mean leaving dentistry, just starting to grow that muscle and start strengthening that muscle of at least thinking a little bit differently. So, what do you suggest? What are some of the practices of how someone who's maybe found themselves entrenched in fear and so quote unquote pot committed, which I love that term?
Mhm.
Um, how do you suggest kind of dipping your toe into trying something new and thinking a little bit uniquely and differently?
I love that question so much, and you have a I love your intentionality, by the way. Like the way you're asking your questions and the way you're taking the thing that I'm saying and going a bit deeper into it. It's a really amazing host technique, and you're obviously a very inquisitive individual. And I just wanted to give you a quick acknowledgement
Well, thank you, Corinne.
midway in this episode, because you're just a tremendous host.
Well, thank you.
Um, so the first thing I would say, and one of the tools that I have is it's simple. It's called an 80-year life map. And I say 80 years because the average life expectancy in North America right now is about 80, 77 for men, 81 for women. I kind of rounded that together to a nice round number because we all like things that make sense for us. So 80-year life plan. And I get my clients to create this grid, this 8 by 10 grid, which is like 80 blocks, 80 chunks. Each chunk represents a year. And we just put an X in every year that they've already lived. So most of my clients, or even myself personally, will have at least a third of that 80-year thing already filled out. And some people have 50 chunks filled out, and some people have 60 chunks filled out, and other people have 45 chunks filled out. And it's cool to see what they've filled out, but where their brains go is how many chunks they have remaining, right? When you
Mm,
see a grid and you see, okay, well, look at all the life I've already lived, your eye immediately goes to, well, how much time do I have left?
mm.
And what do I want to do in that time? Who do I want to be? What do I want to have? Who do I want to become in that time frame? And sometimes just a simple you understanding that, hey, what if I only had 20 years left? What if I only had 30 years left? And that's being generous, quite frankly. How many people do we know who suddenly pass away?
Mm.
The healthiest people we know, sometimes they're just on a treadmill and something happens and they pass away. We hear about athletes all the time, or again, I mentioned the term suicide earlier. We've lost somebody, another celebrity recently. He was, I think, he was 40 or in his mid 40s. It's just so 80 years is just me being quite generous and saying, hey, if nothing happens and you have your amazing health, let's say you make it to 80. So that's the first thing I just really put into perspective for people, that how much time do you have? The second thing I love to do, and I'm so fascinated by space, when you zoom out, so like right now I'm looking at the Toronto skyline and I can see it, at least my perception of what I think it looks like. And I zoom out and I'm like, okay, I just see some clouds. And then I zoom out and I just see water and land. And I zoom out. And once you zoom out all the way into like the galaxy, you realize that Earth is like less than your fingernail. Like it's probably like a third of, maybe even a hundredth of your fingernail, like Earth. So sometimes when I just zoom out and I just sit in this like awe of like my existence is like this big, my problems just suddenly disappear. It's a weird thing, but I just gain different perspective and different gratitude and appreciation for the life that I live. The next step is I ask people, well, what do you want to be? What do you want to have? And what do you want to do with your time? Being could be, hey, I just want to become flexible, right? I just want to become flexible. Being could be, I want to become fluent in Spanish. Doing could be, I've always wanted to visit. I want to take this trip to the Eiffel Tower. Or I want to learn how to ride a motorcycle. That's something you want to do. And having could be, I would love to have a waterfront property in Miami. Having could be, I'd love the new BMW 440. I'd love having a personal assistant. It would just give people fun and creativity just to say, what do you want to be, do, and have?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's only two more steps to this entire puzzle. The next is called the SVA. What is the smallest viable action? What is the smallest step you could take to get closer to having one of those things you want to be, do, and have? Let's take Spanish as an example. Well, you could just download Duolingo or another app on your phone. That's the smallest step you could take today. You don't have to even go into chapter 1. Just download the app. James Clear in Atomic Habits talks about flossing your teeth. He says, you want to make someone who's not a flosser into a flosser, get them to floss one tooth. You want someone who wants to go to the gym, who's not going to the gym, get them to just buy a membership. It's just the smallest possible thing. And then the last step, which is often the most challenging, is something I call the ZOR. The ZOR is the zone of resistance. This is where your old beliefs, your patterns, your worldview, everything gets challenged because you think, well, people like me don't do things like that. People like me and my family, we don't deserve to have money. Well, people like me, we're not meant to be on motorcycles. Well, people like me, how could we ever go to Paris? Like we're barely left this country. And that's where you take your old belief, which is often negative and no longer serves you, and you replace it with a new belief. And you say, well, people like me don't learn Spanish. Instead, you might say, I can't wait to visit Mexico in 3 months and order my coffee in all Spanish. You tie it to a really cool emotion and you tie it to an actual reality you can touch and taste. So I even forget the question because I'm just, I love this work so much, but I use these 4 steps of life mapping, asking what they want to be, do, and have, the smallest viable action, and then understanding and overcoming their zone of resistance to help people live their dream life now, not when they're 65 or 75, not when they think they need to retire. Who would want to do that? There's no such thing as golden years of like, well, let's do that later. It's like, well, your best health is right now.
Mm-hmm.
And your most awareness is right now. So let's go live right now.
Oh, I love that. That's so exciting. And it really simplifies things beautifully. Something that you can really imagine taking that first little step once you have the clarity of where you want to go, which is really beautiful about what you're creating there. That's awesome. So
there's
go ahead.
One thing might help here. There's a phrase that I have been asking myself for about 10 months. Okay. And this is whenever I want to do something new, or I want to step into a different zone that I haven't been in, or sometimes I just wake up and I'm like, what might I want to do today? And the phrase is this: what is the best next thing? Full stop. Just asking myself, What is the best next thing? Okay, after this podcast, what is the best next thing for me to do? Oh, I want to do this thing. Okay, well, what might be the best next thing for me to get closer to that? If I don't know how to do it, well, who do I know that might be able to do it? And I'm constantly asking, what is the best next thing? Not to be confused with what is the next best thing. The
Right.
next best thing, just that little dialogue makes you feel sometimes as if the next best thing is second choice. Nobody likes second choice. That's like, well, I wanted pizza, but you got sushi. Yeah, whatever. Let's just do pizza. That's the next best thing. That means you got to settle. I don't believe in settling. I believe you get what you work for. So what is the best next thing? It's just a phrase that I've been thinking about over and over and over again. It comes up in my journal daily. I think about it multiple times a day. And anytime I find myself in a funk, or I don't know what to do, or I'm feeling down, or I'm in a state where I'm not feeling my best, I just come back to the question, what is the best next thing? How can I best next express myself?
Love that. Very cool. Thank you for that. That's a really awesome practice. So, one of the things you've mentioned multiple times during this conversation are these incredible retreats that you lead. Are these the kind of practices that you support people on in the retreats? Are these the kinds of things we can expect? Or what do you do on these incredible retreats?
Yeah. So I love retreats, not just because people get to come to a really fun, warm destination. Like when you think about retreats, you think about fun, sun, water, pool, excursions, and like yoga and meditation and woo woo. And like, yes, I love that stuff. But that's not like the type of retreats that I identify with. For me, it's how can I help somebody just have one aha moment or one catalyst moment that could fundamentally shift the trajectory of their life. So if someone's going this way, how can they experience one thing where now all of a sudden they're going that way? And how do they might hear something on day three? Now it takes them that way. And just these little micro moments, because a catalyst moment for me, one would have been in 2016 when I decided to do my first dinner. So when my life was going this way, I did a dinner and my life skyrocketed the other way. So it was like
Yeah.
one little moment in time. So my retreats really focus on helping people uncover or discover their own catalyst moments. And as much time I spend on my workbooks and the exercises and the personal development and just like helping people transform, sometimes it's the things that are unpredictable that have the biggest success. For example, my last event, or one of my last events in September, on the last day, we went and we rented ATVs and we were riding in the Mexican jungle. And there was one woman in particular who, at the start of the experience, was like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm scared. Like, put me in the back or let me ride with somebody. Like, she didn't feel like she could actually do it. And then, with the help of the instructors, they're like, hey, just try it. Let's just do one turn. Let's just go around 1 mile. If you don't feel like you can do it, don't worry. You can hop on with someone else. And she did it. And then she stood up. And then on the way back, she was almost like, I don't want to say she was racing people, but she was like, she was flying. And now to this day, she has constantly told me that that moment on the ATV, it wasn't necessarily about her being able to do it. It's again, we said this earlier, who she became in the process. So I look for moments like this in my retreat. All my clients know I always have a surprises up my sleeve because I never like to give away what is going to happen. I just want people to come, and I just want you to say, just trust me for the next 2.5 days. Whatever happens, happens. But this ATV ride, as an example, just I look for moments where people can become someone who they see in the mirror. And instead of that person being light years or decades ahead, be like, oh, that'll take me 6 years to become that person. I'm like, well, what if you can just become that person now? How
Mm.
would that version of you that you see, that you hold in such higher regard than the person you see today in the mirror? What if we were just to shorten the timeline to this week? Right? Peter Thiel, he's a venture capitalist. He has this quote. He said, how can you accomplish the next 10 years in the next 6 months?
Yeah.
And just, it's not even about the act of like, how would you do it? It's just when you start thinking about things a different way, life becomes almost effortless. It just becomes this curiosity puzzle. Well, let me just be more curious today. Well, if I could become the type of person to ride an ATV, what characteristics might that person demonstrate? Bravery, willingness, curiosity. Could I take some of those characteristics and just showcase some of them today? I'm not saying you have to go out and rent an ATV, but what if you just went to a new bookstore today? Doesn't that count as being brave? What if you
Yeah.
just did something for the first time today? Wouldn't that be brave? I think it's just people have found themselves stuck in this monotonous routine of like work, lunch, work, dinner, sleep, Netflix, work, lunch,
Yeah.
sleep, dinner, Netflix. And it's just it's a cycle, it's a trap, and by doing the same thing over and over, you're essentially just saying, well, my future is already written for me.
Mm.
And I think there's nothing worse than somebody who looks at their present moment, is unhappy with the past, and is actively doing nothing to change their future.
Mm. Mm.
And then they beat themselves up in the
Yeah.
future, being like, well, why is my future just like my past?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they beat themselves up a decade later saying, well, nothing's really happened. And look how quick this decade went.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, you know what though? It's January, it's New Year's. This year's gonna be different. This decade's gonna be different. And it's great energy and it's great intention and it's great attitude. But if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Exactly. Yeah. Hmm. Beautiful. Ah, so exciting. So
Again,
exciting.
I forget your question, by the way. I'm
Yeah,
just
no,
talking.
you answered it. You answered it. And I think that another component of this that we haven't mentioned, and we can go on another hour talking about, is the component of awareness. And being aware of your situation, of your mindset, of the thoughts that are going through your head, because you were talking about that belief structure and choosing a new belief, having the courage to choose a new belief. So, not just choosing a new direction, giving yourself that permission, but giving yourself permission to think and see differently. And that's what I love about the idea of your retreats is you can physically experience that for yourself. I know you were talking about some exciting things coming up in retreats that are possibly in the future about hanging above ground at great heights, but just having an experience, physical experience of new perspective to give
Mm,
yourself a mindset shift for new perspective of thought processes and belief structure. So that's amazing. That sounds exciting. So if anybody's listening to this, how can they find you? How, if I'm a dentist and I'm thinking I need to hang upside down from, or you didn't say upside down, but if I need to
yeah.
hang from a high height or experience a new experience, how do I find you to find out more?
Oh, thank you so much. So all of my information is on my website, KaranNijhawan.com. Those 4 steps I mentioned earlier, the 80-year life map,
Mhm.
the be, do, and have, the smallest viable action, the zone of resistance, all of that is in a free PDF on my website. You just download it for free. It's a 4-step guide. It's really simple, it's fun, and it's easy to implement. That's why I like it. And then on my website, there's a little tab on the top that says upcoming events. And I have events in Peru, in Mexico, Toronto will be one this year, and I'm always trying to push my own boundaries of
Mm.
what I want to bring to others. I'm always trying to push the envelope of what I think is possible, even for myself. And oftentimes, I just my clients or my network or the people that I talk to on social media, I'm just always picking up little ideas of what might be the best next thing for that person. And
Mm.
then, do I think there's another 5 or 6 people just like that person who may want to experience this thing? And oftentimes, when I'm planning an event or a retreat, I just ask one person. I said, "Hey, hypothetically, Taryn, if I was to host a retreat with saunas and ice baths and like tasting menus and massages for maybe like 2.5 days in Toronto in September, would you come?" And then you're like, yeah, that sounds amazing. I'm like, perfect. That's all the validation I need to
Mhm.
then go launch the entire event. Where sometimes people might get lost in the how or who or the steps in doing something like that. I think one of my greatest strengths is my ability to execute,
Mm.
and it's because the same level of belief that I used to have of why I could not do something, I've now just found a way to put into the bucket of, well, what if you could do it? And I just leverage that same. I minimize the gap between thinking and action, and that's probably the best way I've been able to articulate it ever in my life. Was just in that last 10 seconds is minimizing the gap between thinking and action.
Yeah, that's a superpower. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for sharing all your great insight here with us today. You've definitely got me thinking a little bit differently and imagining how to shrink that gap between thinking and action. I love that concept. Before you leave us today, I'd love to ask you the question I ask of all my guests because I love the answers that come forth. What is your current definition of happiness?
Being so incredibly satisfied with the person you see in the mirror.
Yes.
Just being like, wow, look at you. You did it again today. You challenge yourself. You put yourself out there. You took a day off. Oh, you challenged yourself in the gym. Oh, you went to a bookstore. Oh, you hung out with your dog instead of an extra hour on your laptop. You said, I love you more. You left more sticky notes for your partner. You decided to cook today instead of ordering out. You decided to minimize the amount of time you watch Netflix this week. And just being so proud of those micro moments, so proud, as if you had just won like a peace prize, like a Nobel Peace Prize. Like, why not celebrate those wins as much as getting an Oscar? And I think if you're able to do that and really just own that power and then share it with just an abundance attitude with your friends, with your people you're connected to on Facebook, it's like every day is just such a blessing. So my definition would be being extremely satisfied with who you see in the mirror.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, my friend. Such an honor to know you. And I'm so grateful to have sparked this new friendship between the two of us. I look forward to many, many more conversations.
Likewise, and thank you for bringing this type of topic and ideas to the forefront of not just an industry that really needs it, but just to society who feels trapped, who feel like they're stuck or feel like there's no other options for them. I think podcasts like this are an excellent resource and excellent tools for people to be inspired, but also take action. So thank you for you.
Awesome. Awesome. And thank you so much to all of you for joining us here today. And I'm hoping, I know that there's been some inspiration for you today in this conversation, some really key nuggets in there. And I hope you can take them away with you today. And for you, ask yourself the question of what is my best next action going forward? And remember, when you feel good, that's when you can do good. Bye bye.